Alright guys, just finished second round. Unfortunately it's only a draw this time. It's okay. So my opponent was this young girl, Alan Wang from the United States. Almost 2200, 21 something high. Yeah, very solid player. Of course, overall the game was overall quite solid. Not much happened. To be honest, kind of like my fault. I didn't push it. I offered a draw in a position that I probably could have continued. She could have continued as well. I was getting low on time. I hate excuses, so I'm not gonna sit here and pretend. I chickened out, to be honest. I am rusty a little bit, so yeah. But it is what it is. Hopefully I can do better tomorrow, and yeah. But I'm sure there are things that we can learn from this game as well. So yeah, let's check it out. Let's see what went wrong, and yeah. So draw. It is what it is. But yeah. All right. We come back stronger. Let's check the game. Let's see if I could have made any improvements. Probably so. But anyway, it is what it is. 1.5 out of 2. Not too bad. The tournament is basically is just beginning, so it's fine. It's fine. We'll bounce back. We'll bounce back stronger, so it's fine. All right, let's go over to the analysis board and see if my lack of bravery was justified. It was not, so fight on. Anyway, see you on the analysis board.
I got dizzy watching this back, but these were some of my unfiltered thoughts right after the second game ended. And here we go with the recap of the second round game. In this one, I'm playing against the young 18-year-old Alan Wang, and I'm playing black. She started out with d4. So I figured that out in my preparation that she was a d4 player. Still, what made my preparation a little bit challenging that she didn't have a lot of games online or in the databases. So I wanted to play something solid, something reliable. So I picked d5 as a response, c4, e6, knight c3, and a6. So basically, I ended up going for a Queen's Gambit declined, more specifically what we call nowadays the Janowski line, the Janowski system. So what is the point of this seemingly useless a6 move? So one idea is, compared to the standard Queen's Gambit decline line, is that I am holding the knight f6 developing move back. The point is that I'm not letting white pin the knight with bishop g5. So that's one idea. The second thing is that I'm immediately threatening white a little bit with this d takes c5 and b5 move, trying to hold on to the pawn, be a little bit greedy, completely viable as well. And a6, there's another, let's say, upside of this move, a6 move, that when c takes d5 happens, and it did happen in the game, white is going to, let me even show you, c takes d5, e takes d5. So normally in these structures, in this what we call the Carlsbad structure, especially in this exchange variant, white is going to have the standard minority attack idea or plan with like rook b1, b4, a4, b5. So a6 immediately shows that it's quite useful, right? Because I'm going to play c6 and a6, and again, it shows that how useful the move can really be, because I'm immediately somewhat ready for this minority attack. Of course, c takes d5 is not a must. She can play a move like knight f3 and go for this line with d takes c4, of course, quite complex. There are other moves like e4, for instance, also a normal move. But she opted for c takes d5, which generally speaking, I would say is the main line. E takes d5, And now here, the critical move should be or would be queen b3. And of course, again, here black has quite a few options here. They're the aggressive, responses with c5, for instance. A pawn sacrifice. Bishop d6 is another interesting pawn sacrifice. And then also we have the standard responses such as c6 protecting the pawn, knight f6 again protecting the pawn. She opted for the move knight f3, which is fine as well. Now c6, queen c2. So this was still my preparation, and in my preparation I prepared knight f6. I specifically prepared knight f6, bishop g5. I'm showing you all my secrets, but no secret about this. Of course, this is still the main line in this line, so there's nothing new here, honestly. Bishop e6, let's say e3, h6, bishop h4, knight b d7, a completely fine position for both. But instead I played the move bishop d6, which is also fine. Like, this is still a move that exists. But I don't know why I changed my preparation. And to be honest, this is something that generally speaking I talk against. I normally don't recommend doing this. And whether we talk about opening preparation or just plans in general in your game, if you have a plan, and if it's a good plan, or at least there's nothing wrong with it, and there isn't anything better, like significantly better, then just be consistent and follow your plan and follow through. And I think it's the same for preparation, like in most cases. But I don't know why. So I don't know why I changed mid-game. Of course, I didn't really know what she knew or what she didn't know. Of course, she didn't play the critical line, so that was somewhat of a good sign. But I wasn't really sure what her knowledge was on this line. So I wanted to, mix it up a little bit. Wanted to play a little bit more. Wanted to pick something more interesting. Not that bishop d6 is significantly more interesting than knight f6, but still. She played bishop g5, which is a fine and good move. And my response was e6. So I could play f6. I didn't really like f6 because of one line I'm going to show you. But generally speaking, I don't like f6 in this structure. I just don't really think it fits. But I talk about that a little bit later. But here I think f6 is actually inaccurate, because after f6, white goes back to d2. So this is the main point. Bishop d2 is a really good move. Not bishop h4, but bishop d2. And after knight e7, white has a great move here. And so, of course, even though f6, you can't really categorize it as a typical like wing attack kind of move, but I would still kind of sort of put it in that like group, if you could call that. And where do you quote unquote punish a wing attack type of move? Well, always in the center. So white's best move here is e4, and I believe after e4 the position is very, very uncomfortable, because of course white opens up the position. I'm somewhat underdeveloped. The light squares now, because of this f6 move, are very vulnerable. So overall, I really dislike this position, and I think I was right about that. So I ended up playing knight e7, now e3. And so here, because she wasted the e move, of course, e3 is the most natural move, but because she can't really go back to d2, so she has to drop back to h4, and she's not likely going to play e4. I could have opted for f6. f6 would have been completely fine here. I don't know about completely, but I think f6 would have been fine. I still didn't like it, and this is something that I mentioned earlier, that f6, generally speaking, in this structure, I'm not a big fan of. So let's say white goes back to h4. I followed up with the typical move bishop f5. After all, that's the point of this whole bishop d6 knight e7 setup, to be able to play bishop f5. but bishop d3, bishop takes, queen takes, castle, castle, and I'm just not a fan of this f6 move in general. Is it bad for me? I wouldn't necessarily say that, but f6 is just awkward, right? So we have this saying of every pawn move is a weakness, and it kind of like this is kind of true here, because I made this e6 square a little bit weak. I don't have the typical knight d7, knight f6 plans. Of course not right now, but in general. So f6 is just doesn't really fit in this structure. And also I make my light squares weak, so I always have to be on the lookout for these e4 moves. And so overall, I was just not a big fan of this. So because of it, I ended up playing the move bishop g4. I didn't want a castle just yet. Not that it's bad, I just wasn't sure where the game was going, and so I wanted to play something that still fits the position and it makes sense. And also bishop g4 is overall a nice maneuver because I want to play a move like bishop h5, bishop g6. By the way, speaking of the natural moves, right? So e6 was a natural move, and then I was talking about the idea of bishop f5. So here, the knight e7 move, of course, the whole point is to play bishop f5. I could have played bishop f5 here, which is completely, in my opinion, is completely fine. Bishop f5 is okay, because if you take on e7, I take on c2, you take on d8, I take back, I can castle, but in this case, it doesn't really matter. The queens are off the board. You're not going to attack me. My king is completely safe. Structure is solid, so it's fine. I like this position. I have the bishop pair in I would say a somewhat dynamic position, meaning I can still open up the position. The bishop pair can be very useful. So I was fine with this, right? Again, if you play a move like bishop d3 here, again, I'm also fine with that. Takes, and now I can probably castle, and it's more or less the same position as we had here, right? But the difference is that I don't have the f6 move in this position. I like this much more, because again, I could have knight d7, knight f6 in the future. I don't have to worry about the the weak light squares, especially on e6. I like this much better. What I didn't necessarily like about bishop f5 was this line, queen takes f5. Now, do I have to worry about any of this? I don't think so. Knight takes f5, bishop takes d8, king takes d8, and again, like, okay, let's say I go bishop d3, or white goes bishop d3, I go back to somewhere, knight e7 perhaps, and the position should be fine. Keep in mind, I had like 100 and 150 ratings more than Alan, so I somewhat naturally wanted to keep more pieces on the board, and I didn't necessarily want to trade all the pieces off the board to keep it a little bit more interesting and just to have more chances and just to keep the position a little bit more complex. So sometimes because of it, and this is why sometimes it's a little bit tricky playing against very solid and good players but lower rated players, because you wanna be objective, but being objective is not always the best thing to do, because if you're objective and you're technically playing the best moves, I'm not saying bishop f5 is the very best move, but if you're like in generally, right, if you play the best move and you play objectively the best, you go into this very dry positions, and sometimes in these end games, and then I'm like, what can I do? So not a whole lot. So that was also a little bit my thought process behind bishop g4. I just wanted to, again, throughout this whole game, I just wanted to have more pieces overall on the board. And now she responded with bishop e2, and I was quite pleased about this. So I was like, okay, if bishop e2 is the best move here, then I think bishop g4 was the fine solution or fine move by me. I wasn't a big fan of bishop g4, by the way, because I think like a move like bishop d3 would have been better. Let's say I go knight d7, bishop h4, and then white castles long. So my setup is is okay, but it's at the same time it's a little bit awkward. Like, this is not how you play, generally speaking, this particular line, this queen c2 one. So my setup was not so good, and I was genuinely a little bit afraid of this bishop d3 and long castle, and just, I wasn't a big fan. I was also looking at knight d2. I think this would have also been somewhat of a better move, because I have to be careful here. Knight d7, white can develop to d3, which is generally the idea. And now I might even have to go back to e6, which is not even a move that I want to make, because the point would be that, okay, at least I can trade the bishop off. But now bishop h5, castle, bishop g6, and white again goes e4, and all of these, tempo wasting moves by me kind of like came back and just comes back and bite me. So it's not an easy position. Again, after bishop b6, which is not the most natural move, but still it's fine. Black is okay. I'm just I don't know. I wasn't very pleased about these options, but again, she picked the very, very, very overly solid bishop e2 move. Knight e7, bishop h5, bishop h4. I responded with bishop h5, bishop g3. And here so first of all, this bishop h4, bishop g3 plan by Alan, I think it was quite mediocre. Again, throughout the game, she was always choosing the more solid option, which was fine, but not very ambitious. And so even this bishop h4, bishop g3 were kind of mediocre, but my responses were also quite mediocre. So best move would have been knight f6. I don't truly even understand why I didn't play knight f6. I think it would have been the very best. I mean, that's the maneuver anyway. And I protect the bishop. I don't want to take on g3, because why would I improve the opponent's position? So if I don't have to trade, I don't want to trade. So knight f6 it's awesome. If you go back, I have knight g6, so I win all the tempos. So knight f6 would have been completely fine. I don't know. And I thought, in the game, I'm like, oh, I'm playing such a clever move with knight c8, because if you take, I have this fantastic knight on d6, and the knight on d6 just controls so many like center squares. It's awesome for me. Is it really that great for me? I mean, in theory, it is, but it's actually not the best. So let me show you why. So she made a questionable move, right? Because she took, which is borderline a bad move. I would call this a bad move. But then now she could have played bishop d3, and now my knight on c8 is just very awkward. Let's say I go back to g6, which is standard, takes, long castle, and all of a sudden, again, she's playing e4, and my king is in the center. And so I might even be in trouble here. So this was silly by me. Knight c8 was a very deep idea, but it was a little too deep. So don't be too deep. Just play normal chess. Yeah. But she took on d6, which is a bad move. So why is it a bad move? Again, as I said, right? So why am I improving the opponent's pieces? What's the point? What is the benefit of me trading on d6? Right? There is no trade. It's like, I mean it from white's perspective, right? So why am I trading? What's the point? What do I get out of this? So the general idea is, or the principle says that don't trade, right? Just we wait for the opponent to trade, because when we take back, we get to improve the position. So if I trade, I have to achieve something with it, right? That would be the point. Now, what does she achieve by trading on d6? Other than improving my piece, not much. So I was very, very pleased. And again, keep in mind, she played bishop h4, bishop g3, bishop d6 in her last three moves. I mean, that was just bad. Castle, rook c1, rook e8. But of course, I was playing the game, so I gave her plenty of chances. Here, this is again a great position for me. Like, I'm not winning, I'm probably not even better, but it's a very comfortable position, right? Great situation to be in. solid, everything is protected. And so again here, this was a typical game where, you know, I guess my rustiness or whatever, the lack of gameplay, lack of tournaments, lack of practice, was just really just hit me here. I should be a little bit more active, right? I was just not confident whatsoever. I was looking at all kinds of moves like, you know, rook e6, g5. I didn't truly look at rook e6. I had the idea in mind, but in this particular moment, I wasn't really considering rook e6. I think rook e6 is a fantastic move, right? Because I want to go like rook h6 or rook g6, a somewhat typical, you know, rook lift idea. It's great. It would have been awesome, right? To try to get at least the initiative going. I was considering, on the other hand, g5. I think g5 is a very creative move. Is it a great move? Is it a good one even? I'm not so sure. I think it's playable, and the point would be is to just gain space, again, try to grab the initiative. The wing attack, I think, is justified because the center is extremely secure, so it's fine. But I just didn't trust myself. I didn't trust my intuition, so I just opted for queen e7. But queen e7, again, is a very mediocre move. Queen b3. And this happened basically throughout the game, basically until the game ended. Again, here, I opted for something solid, something more on the defensive side, and I played the move rook b8. Is it a bad move? It's not a bad move. I'm just not really achieving anything. Again, if I want to go for a win, if I want to, you know, make the position actually truly interesting, I should play something like f5, right? And go f4 and just try to unbalance the position. But instead, I went with rook b8. Nothing wrong with it. It's just meh. a3. But again, it was like a back and forth, right? She didn't really do much. I never took advantage of it, and vice versa. So even here, a3, it's fine, but it's a bit slow. So here, I could have played knight c4. What a great move, right? Because there are all kinds of tactics with the pin, with b5. If you don't take, I do play b5, a5, I just gain space. a3 is actually, now it's even a problem for her because the structure is going to be fixed. It would have been great. If you go bishop c4, I even have bishop takes f3. There's some tricks with queen g5. I'm creating some weaknesses for you. Knight c4, I just missed straight up. Instead, I went with the move knight e4. Looks like a great move, but knight c4 was definitely better. Queen c2, I went with a5. Again, I'm not necessarily comfortable, or I was comfortable with the move a5. I'm just not impressed. Maybe that's the better word. I'm just not impressed with the move a5. Again, I probably should have done something on the king side. a5, knight e1, I don't want to trade, which was fine. Bishop g6, knight e3. And again, this is where I made another very mediocre move. I played the move rook ec8, which is, again, very defensive, right? Potentially I want to play b5 maybe, but why do you prepare it? Why do you prepare it? Again, how do we approach every position? We approach it by being aggressive, right? If you have the option to be aggressive, be aggressive. We're looking for the checks, the captures, the attacks. And just, you know, we want to put the pressure on the opponent. So the opponent responds to our move and not the other way around. So that would be the point, right? If I have the chance to be aggressive, I want to be aggressive. And so here I should have played b5. I should have played b5. It's such a perfect moment to play b5. Because if you jump to c5, it's great because I get to take back, and you're not going to have an outpost on c5 because of the pin on the h7 b1 diagonal. It's great. So you have to take back with the pawn, which is awesome because then the c6 pawn is not even weak anymore, right? So it's great. So probably you're going to jump back to c3, but I'm not taking. I can play now knight d6. I can play knight d6, and it's so great. Because now I'm going to play something like knight c4, fixing the structure with a4. These are just some some really good moves and great plans. And now it's everyone's game, and at least I made the position interesting, and I have some winning chances. Of course, I mean, I am willing to take the risk of creating at least one weakness on c6, which is a big isolated backward pawn. Not great, but what do we know about weaknesses? Whenever we talk about weaknesses, a weakness is only a weakness if you can pressure it. Can you pressure it? Not really, right? So this would have been great. Instead, again, I play this mediocre rook c8 move, which is just meh. Queen d1, knight d6. And again, knight d6, it's fine. There's nothing necessarily wrong with it. I think that this was okay. But the problem was that all of these moves were mediocre and slow. So at least, if I play mediocre moves, I could have played them like in 1 minute or in 2 minutes. But no. Many of these moves, guys, took me like 5 to 10 to even 15 minutes, per move. And it's just, and this time management is just, basically makes every position almost unplayable. Right? Because if you're low on time, even a solid position can turn into disaster very, very quickly. And of course, it just has a toll on your confidence as well. Like you're like, okay, you don't trust yourself. You can't make decisions. You don't want to make decisions, and you can't even make decisions. So knight c5, knight takes c5, knight takes c5, and all of this that I'm talking about basically led me to the decision of b6 and then offering a draw. Now, in my thoughts after the game, you heard me. Was it justified to offer a draw? Can I play on? Absolutely. Can she play on? Absolutely. Is it a playable position for both? Yes. Would I play this game in any other situation if I was more like, okay, of course, excuses are coming. But if I was more in play and I was more confident, absolutely. But again, now here I was like under 5 minutes, which is terrible. This is only move 23, guys, right? Move 23. So I still have to make like 17 more moves until I get an extra 30 minutes. So that's a lot of moves. And as you can see, I was just playing mediocre moves left and right. And so I offered a draw. Again, was it justified? No. Is this something that I recommend doing to my students? Absolutely not, right? I always get mad when my students don't play their games and then they run away, they don't fight, play on, doesn't matter the result. And so I made the same mistake. Of course, I chickened out. It's not justified, it's a bad decision, but I was feeling really rusty here. I was feeling really rusty. And of course, you might also think that, wait a second, this is move 23. Didn't you say like there was Sophia rule in this tournament? And yes, and now she accepted it. Of course, again, as I said, I think she wasn't really like ambitious in this game. She didn't want to beat me, or at least it felt like that she didn't want to beat me. But yeah, I offered her a draw. She accepted it, and I don't know if I get I get into trouble for this or the tournament, but she accepted. We signed the papers, and then we went our ways, and then the arbiter came. It's like, hey guys, what are you doing? There's Sophia rule, you can't do that. Now I wasn't aware of this, of course, but then the arbiter said, well, it's fine, we give you a warning, so just don't do it again. And we said sorry and okay. So yeah, that was a little bit weird. By the way, it happened to a lot of other players. Of course, it was our fault, and it's always the player's fault because it was in the regulation. I checked. But it happened so many times to so many other players, like even in like round 6 or 7. Like, why don't they just make an announcement like, hey guys, it's Sophia rule, don't make a draw until like move 31. So it's like, why don't you? Anyway, sorry, it's still the player's fault. I'm just rambling here. Anyway, guys, yeah, that's it for this game. It was okay. But rusty game, of course. But yeah, that was me. Yeah, round two. So a draw. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something from it. And I will see you in round three and round four. So until then, take care.